I wanted to share with you the good and the bad and ugly of going through a frost. So I'll start over here. Tonight's only supposed to be about 41. So you know, from the looks of it, I did a lot of work to cover up my garden. But as we get through the big reveal, you'll see that, I don't know, some things did okay. Like this area right here did better than the rest of the yard. You can kind of see this tomatillo looks okay. This one obviously has some damage. If we come over here, the strawberries did quite well. You can see that they all look nice. And that tomato, I think maybe because it didn't have, the sheet wasn't touching it in any way. That's the only thing that I can surmise. Because this tomato and this tomato, no worries. This pepper, you can see here, had some damage, obviously where the sheet was touching it. This one's okay. So this is the best part. Now this tomato, I didn't really care that much about because it's got a virus. But once again, you can see that, for the most part, it did well, but you can see the places here that it kind of got frost burnt. I put a little mint underneath here, and for the most part it seems happy, like nothing bothered it. My now everything in here did well except for my nasturtiums. The nasturtiums over here kind of underneath this didn't mind, but it really messed those guys up there. And then if we get into kind of like my succulent bed, you can see that for the most part it did okay, but a couple of places, obviously again where the sheet was touching, had some burns there. And let's go this way. So this pepper right here is an OG I've had for a couple of years, and so it really doesn't care too much about most things in life. But you can see that it did get affected just a little bit here on the outsides. Just a little bit of wilt, but for the most part it's pretty happy. And then there was a pretty good canopy over this pepper, so it was just kind of, again, the nasturtia that had some of it was touching the sheet. And then the first night, so I covered this all up on New Year's Day, and the first night, this setup did okay. Like the nasturtia still looked good, but by the second night it got it, you know. And so I'll drop that there. I didn't cover up my zinnias, so I lost them. The broccoli doesn't care. This is a Brad's Atomic Grate that I just cannot get to finish, so I didn't cover it up. And then obviously my basil. And the funny thing about stuff when it's frost harmed is that this all looks like it's, you know, like it would just crack, but it's really soft, because what happens in a freeze is all the moisture gets sucked out of the plant and frozen. So not out of it, but frozen in its cells. And so it does this. So I'm stepping on a bunch of sheets now. I'm gonna have to set these down so I can walk. A terrible devastation happened here in the greenhouse. I obviously need to do some work sealing this up. It seems a little counterproductive to me sometimes because it gets so hot in here during the day that sometimes my trays are testing out at, 100 degrees. Now this tomato over here looks like maybe it's got some hope, but today I'm gonna move these out and see if they'll come back, but otherwise it's mostly a loss. And these were my primo tomatoes. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I watch so many people on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube, and they're just always showing you all the beautiful, awesome stuff. They're not showing you, the realities of gardening and the challenges. And I really think that's unfair, because then we're looking at our gardens like, what the heck, like I'm never gonna be good at this. And so I really wanted you to see me take this apart so that you could see that I spent a good hour working on covering up my yard, and it's devastation. And I didn't cry. I refuse to let myself cry over this. Again, you can kind of see a little bit on that tomato is got some life, but the rest of these are just really sad. Everything over here that was a cold crop did great, no problems. This tomato here did a little bit better. I kind of put this in here to pitch the sheet up a little bit off the plant. So it's got some damage, but it's not as bad. And this is another OG pepper that mostly just up here at the top where the blanket was touching it. That's the only significant damage. The rest of this down here looks quite good. So I need to dump another pile of sheets. And, again, stuff like this, I saw in other places that some people's kale and some people's mustard greens really took a beating, but mine did well. I harvested a bunch of broccoli this week. The girls helped me do this even, they thought, oh, this is like building forts for plants. And they wish that they could be a plant. And well, unfortunately, if they were a plant and had gotten covered up in these forts, they wouldn't have done so well. And so this is also where I tell you that I definitely probably am going to backtrack on my philosophy about frost cloth. And this is why, because this is really one day of devastation, and these tomatoes were all doing great. And after day one, I came out here and removed all the tomatoes that were on them, which is maybe something I should have done before. Another mistake I made maybe was counting on the rain to have given me a deep enough soak that would help my plants, because that's another, tried and true tip is to deeply water, and that'll keep your plants from freezing so bad. So that's one thing. And then, like I said, I probably should have done a better job of making sure that nothing was touching the plants. But to me, it's like I was telling my husband, it's like for the minimal investment of getting some frost cloth, then all this stuff, all these tomatoes that I've invested so much time in, maybe they would have had a chance, and I'm not, and this is another thing, is right here when you're in the midst of post-frost devastation, this is not the time to go crazy. You know what I've been doing? I just keep watering it. Even the ones that look completely horrible, I just keep watering them. And we're not gonna go in here and, let me come on this side so you can see without the shadow. And I'm not gonna come in here and start some aggressive game of trimming and pruning. I'm not gonna come in and start an aggressive game of fertilizing even. I'm gonna let these things naturally see what happens And I told my husband I'll give it probably 2 or 3 weeks. And in 2 or 3 weeks, if nothing's improved, or if it has improved, then I'll make my judgments then. You know, I'll decide then what I'm gonna prune and what's salvageable, you know. And the reason why I didn't cry is because this is a lesson, and no matter how bad it hurt me to learn this lesson, this is a sage I picked up, and I just didn't want to take a chance with it. Now, so the lesson's worth learning, you know. Now this bed did great. Some of the weight, it looked like, bothered the onions because I just trimmed them all up, and you can see I lost all my little nasturtia that were in here. But the herbs, they did fine. They didn't bother. They weren't bothered by it all, you know. And then over here, this is my greatest relief, is that all of my asparagus ferns did okay, you know, and I'm just so pleased with that, because that really would have hurt my feelings to have lost those after I just planted them. This pepper is, I didn't cover it up, so it's pretty much done. I didn't cover this one up, so it's done. So, don't normally like to show you my sheets, but it's been the warmest day that I've had to be able to line dry them, which is my preference, since Dale had his appendix out. So, and they just haven't felt so great being from the dryers. So with all this, I really want to remind you that it's just like life. You know, we're gonna run up against things that make us feel like we got kicked in the teeth, even though we tried our very hardest to prevent getting kicked in the teeth. But there's healing, and there's learning, and there's always an opportunity to do better. And so I hope, like me, you picked a word or some words to be your guide for this year. I told you my word was definitely intentional, and so I made a good hearty list of all the things that I want to be intentional about this year, and they're not just for me, that the things that I want for my children, the things I want for you guys, and you know, just all the positive things that I want to go on for us. Now, this didn't get bothered. I didn't cover up the pineapple. It didn't care. We got these for free, so I got them started. And over here in the shade, none of this got covered up, and not even the aloe seems bothered. And the calendula is looking like it's getting ready to bloom. So I just want you to remember that no matter what your garden throws at you, there's always a better day coming in the garden. So keep your chin up and give stuff a chance to heal. And in a couple weeks, we'll look at things and we'll decide what needs to be pared down. But in the meantime, you just stay diligent, and you keep watering, and you keep believing, just like we have to do in life. You keep believing that things are gonna get better, because they're gonna get better. And even with the little frost or hard frost or the hardest things that life can and will throw at us, I can assure you that we can do this, okay? We can do this. Because see, we got seedlings coming up, and the seedlings are always the greatest reminder that new life and new beginnings are right there, right around the corner. Okay, don't mind Gabby. I wanted to show you what I did with, this is all stuff from the girls' men net, but I wanted to show you what I did with my tomatoes. I brought them all in, and I put them in these cardboard boxes, and I'm trying to keep them away from each other, but they kind of got a little discombobulated when I moved them. And then this box down here is got 2 layers. there's a couple of ripe tomatoes, and there's another layer down here of tomatoes. So the deal is you want to check them kind of every day or so to make sure that, you know, there's no rotting going on. But by having a couple of almost ripe tomatoes in here, you kind of can speed along the process. Another thing is it's my shopping week, so I'll pick up some bananas and some apples because we always have those. And then by putting a banana or an apple in there, and I've got some super ripe ones, so I might put one in here to see how that affects these, and then just kind of update you as I go along. But these are all the tomatoes that I saved, and I actually have been running the heater in the house. So, because with ripening tomatoes, it's more of a heat game than it is a sunshine game. So there you go.